Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this live workshop. Today, we're going to be looking at how you can take, a complete stranger in your market, someone who doesn't know of you, your company, your organization, and start running more exclusive or retained assignments with those prospects. Not long ago, we surveyed some of the recruitment and search personas on our list, right? So we've got, email list, LinkedIn database, all that sort of stuff. And what we found is that, one of the key things that most people wanted was more exclusive or retained agreements, right? They wanted to sort of block competition because what they're finding is that even though you may be able to win job orders, those job orders, they're often, you get a vacancy and it's being worked on by, two, three, four other agencies. So your fill rate's going to go low as well, right? So they want higher fill rates. They want effectively less work with more money. They want to offer a better service to their clients so they can sort of win more loyal customers as well. Again, Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a couple of things. My humble opinion, one of the problems with recruitment is that anybody can enter the market. Anybody can call themselves a recruiter. Quite frankly, all they need is a telephone and a computer, and they can enter the recruitment or search world. And one of the reasons for that is that you can say to any hiring manager, if you're looking for anybody, let me know, and I'll have a look and see if I've got anybody. And what's that done is that a lot of recruiters have entered the market and are working on what we call a contingent basis. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that the contingent model doesn't work. I am saying that it can be hard work. So the average fill rate for a contingent recruiter is anything between 10 and 40%. Even if it's 50%, which is incredibly high for a contingent recruiter, what that does mean is that 50% of the time you're working, you're not getting paid. Think about that for a minute. If I said to you, come and work for me, but 50% of the time I won't pay you, for many contingent recruiters, they're doing just that. Whereas for a retained recruiter, they get paid all the time, every single time, because they get paid the percentage of the fee up front, even if they don't fill the work. But their fill rate, by the way, goes up to 90%. So ultimately, a retained recruiter will work less and earn more. So a retained recruiter may work on 2 retained assignments a month. If you're working at 20% on a contingent basis, it means that you have to work on 10 job orders to fill 10. Just think about that. And by the way, if you've got a team, you're now paying your team salary to work on jobs that they probably won't fill, because most of the job orders that a contingent recruiter gets, they don't fill. So I can understand why, when we did the survey amongst recruiters and search firms from around the world, that was the feedback in terms of what they're looking for. They want more retained or exclusive assignments. They want to block the competitors. They want to fill more of the roles they work on. They want to work less and earn more. And with a retained or exclusive, it's a better service for the client, because from the client's point of view, if your fill rate is now 80 to 90%, what the client's thinking, when I give it to these guys, 80, 90% of the roles are being filled, as opposed to a typical contingent where it may be 10 to 50% of the roles are being filled. So it all makes sense as to why you want to do that. And what we want to do here today is share with you exactly how you can do that.
Just some definitions on that, right? So just anyone that's sort of completely new to selling retainers or selling exclusives, right? You've got contingency recruitment, which is where you get paid after the vacancy's been filled. You've got retained, where you get paid up front, so you get paid to actually do the search. And you've got sort of the hybrid, or what we teach is the hybrid, which is exclusive with cancellation, right? And that means that not only do we work on the vacancy exclusively, it means that if the client cancels for any reason, right? So they change their mind, the role's filled through any other method or any other means, maybe internally or whatever, they pull the job, whatever, they put the job on hold, there's a cancellation fee, right? This way, we can ensure that, all the recruiters that come through our programs, we can ensure that they get paid for every single job order that they work. Again, just want to check in. Does that all make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box, if that makes sense. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and we've all been there. Just want to be absolutely clear. I've my sins done contingent recruiter, where you work your butt off to fill a role, and through no fault of yours, the hiring manager says, "Oh, hey, we found a candidate from elsewhere, or this role's now gone on hold." After you've done all that work, and the job then goes on hold. One of the advantages of exclusive cancellation is, that if that happens, you will always get a percentage of the fee. So you stop working for nothing. And ultimately, when you set up in business, you didn't set up in business to work for nothing. You set up in business to have a profitable business and get paid for the work that you do. So it only seems fair. But that's what we mean by exclusive cancellation. And we'll explain to you in a moment how to get that. Back to you, Drew.
Perfect. So just before we dive into the main training, I want to do a quick disclaimer, right? So none of what we share with you is gonna, work for you if you're not prepared to step outside your comfort zone and do things differently. It's not going to work for you if you're closed minded and not prepared to sort of change what you're currently doing. We need you to, again, we're going to be going for about 60 minutes or so, probably a bit less than 60 minutes, right? With some room for Q&A at the end as well. So all we ask from you, if you're going to be part of this, to be fully engaged for the next 60 minutes or so. That means turn off your Facebook, turn off your LinkedIn, shut down your emails, whatever it is. Shut down anything you've got going on and just focus fully on this training. Again, you've got chat box there so you can ask any questions. Obviously, we're sort of, we're working remotely. We can't sort of interact with you other than the chat box, right? So what we ask is that for the next 60 minutes, so that you're fully engaged and you let us know whether things make sense, don't make sense. You got any questions in the chat box as well. Again, there will be a recording as well, so we'll tell you how to access that at the end as well. Again, but if you agree to be fully engaged, and give us a yes or no, yes in the chat box. If it's a no, you may as well leave now. Again, no hard feelings. But we want people here that are here to sort of learn and to participate. So give us a yes in the chat box if you're ready to begin, and if you're not, then we can leave. Terry, anything you want to add to that before we dive in?
Yeah, because you're probably thinking, why are we doing this? Well, our sole aim is to help you generate more leads, make more placements, and earn more money. That's our business mission. But what we also acknowledge is that you don't know who we are, and you don't know, whether we're really good at it or not. So we want to share with you some gems that we can guarantee will help you. With a view, quite, full disclosure here, that you like what you hear and see, and you want to find out more. And if you don't, that's absolutely fine as well. So I want to be clear, as Drew said, we're not selling anything here. There's no cost. There's no obligation. But we are absolutely committed to give you some gems that when you implement this into your business, you will increase your sales. You will make more placements, and you will earn more money.
Perfect. Again, if you haven't, let us know in the chat box if you're fully engaged. Give us a yes now. If not, then leave as well. Again, I've seen a few of you put it in. Just give us a yes in the chat box if you agree to all that. Again, if not, you're free to leave. Again, no hard feelings.
Yeah, so Chloe, Jerry, James, let us know, please. Hi, Matt. Good to see you, buddy. Patrick, Paul, Richard, William, Stephen, let us know.
Awesome, perfect. So look, when it comes to sort of winning more retainers in your business or turning strangers into your business, right? One of the first shifts that most of the recruiters and search firms that we speak to, they need to go through is the approach, right? And this is effectively how you market your service, what you're doing in terms of your business development, what you're doing in terms of your
Drew,
outreach.
can I just interrupt and say, Patrick, the answer is yes, again and again and again, Patrick, just to let you know, so we know that we're on the right page. We're here to serve you, Patrick, and help in any way we can, but we do need your feedback to do that. Thanks, Drew.
One of the first sort of shifts we need to make is your approach, right? How we are doing the business development, the outreach that we do. One of the shifts we need to make, right? We've got, if you imagine that this triangle represents your entire audience, right? So imagine every single prospect on your list right now. So I'm talking about your email list, your LinkedIn connections, anyone who can buy from you. We've got, we can sort of separate them into two groups, right? We've got what we call now buyers. These people who have vacancies right now, people who can sort of potentially buy your services today, right? Anyone who has a vacancy, anyone who has a job order right now that you can work on, they're now buyers. And then the second group we have is future buyers, right? So this is anyone who can buy your service in the future. Just want to check in first of all, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no. Right, we've got now buyers, people who have a need for your services right now. And then we've got future buyers, people who don't have a need right now, but they have a need in the future. All right, it's fairly straightforward. Again, just let me know if that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know as well. Perfect, right? So one of the big mistakes that we see recruiters making in terms of the business development, right, and pretty much nearly 97% of the market are doing this, is that everyone is going after the now buyers, right? All of your outreach, all of your cold call, your outbound calls, your messaging, your LinkedIn posts, everything is going for now buyers, people who have vacancies you can work on right now, right? The problem with that is there's three problems. One, if we're going after now buyers, we are competing with everybody else that's going after now buyers, right? So we compete. We're trying to gain a smaller percentage of the market that has more competition, right? So we have to work harder and harder just to get the roles. The other problem is that even if we do win the vacancies, because they're people that have a need right now, maybe they've got a job advert out right now, and they're being approached by multiple recruiters, often this is where we end up working on a contingency job order where multiple recruiters are already working on that role vacancy. Again, just want to check in, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so a typical now buyer has got the vacancy on the job board, maybe got it on LinkedIn, maybe even got it on the website. And old school recruiters go, yeah, I'll go to the job boards, I'll see which clients are recruiting, and then I'll reach out to those hiring managers. They're your now buyers, and as Drew rightly said, not only are you doing that, but the world and his wife is also doing that as well. So when you reach out to the now buyers, they say, yes, I am recruiting. You're absolutely right. And if you know anybody good, send me over their CVs or their resumes, and I'll get back to you. You can see the problem with that. You position yourself as a contingent recruiter as you nod, as you put the phone down and high five your colleague for winning another contingent job order that you probably won't fill when you're working with the now buyers. But we've also all been there where you're talking to a hiring manager and they say something like, hey, listen, thanks for reaching out to me. We're not recruiting right now, but certainly next quarter, we're going to be looking for an XYZ. That's your future buyer. And they've told you they're a future buyer. Now you've got a head start on your competitors. And if they say to you that we're going to be looking to recruit an XYZ in the next quarter, you know that you need to make an appointment with them in the next quarter to talk about that role before they pull the trigger on it. And the quicker you can get in front of the hiring manager before they start looking, the more likely you are to win that on a retained or exclusive with cancellation basis. Does that make sense, Drew?
Just to make again, to check in the chat box, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no. Again, so the shift we need to make is we need to start going after the future buyers, right? So again, as Terry said there, as we alluded to, so one, we've got more of the market we can go after, and there's less competition, right? But there needs to be a shift in how we approach this, a shift in how we talk about what we do. So one of the big mistakes that most recruiters make when they're doing the business development, when they're marketing and selling their services, that they talk about recruitment. They talk about their prospects' recruitment needs, what vacancies they have coming up, blah blah blah. When we're going after future buyers, right, one of the key shifts we can make that can get you better results is rather than talking about recruitment per se, we talk about the outcome of recruitment. Again, that's going to vary depending on what market you're on, what market you're in, what market you target. But we talk about, if you think about the candidates you place and think about the benefit they can have to the organization, right? So it could be that they increase profits, could be that they help the organization increase revenue, it could be that they help, finish products on time and to budget, whatever it is, right? I think every market's going to be different. Think about the candidates you place, what outcome do they deliver, right? All of your future buyers are going to have a need or have a want for those qualities, those outcomes, right? So rather than marketing recruitment, we market those outcomes. So rather than saying, "Hey, do you have any vacancies right now?" For example, let's say that your candidates, one of the key things your candidates do is help an organization increase profits. Rather than asking the prospect, "Do you have any vacancies, or are you looking to recruit this person?" We say, effectively, "Are you interested in increasing your profits?" Right? Again, you get more people say yes than no, right? So we've got less competition, and we can start to build relationships with people before they have a recruitment need, right? What happens when you do that? Your volume of appointments go up, right? So again, if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat box. So your sales, or the number of sales you make in your business, is directly proportional to the number of hiring managers you speak to every single month, right? One of the big sort of roadblocks that we see with most recruiters is they're simply not having enough sales conversations. Therefore, they're not getting enough proposals out. Therefore, not making enough sales, right? The more of these conversations we can have with people who have a desire for the outcome that your candidates place, right? Not a desire for the candidates, a desire for the outcome that your candidates give. The more conversations we can have, the more sales we make. Again, just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you'd add to that? And again, any questions, put in the chat box as well.
Yeah. I just want to repeat what you said there, Drew, about the questions. Feel free to ask us anything. Just type it in the chat box, and we will answer it, because we then know what needs answering. And it almost sounds counterintuitive to say not to talk about recruitment. And I know just to let you know, I'm a former recruiter, and I recruited IT project directors. And when I got this transformed my performance, because now rather than talk about, do you have any vacancies for IT project directors, I can now talk to a hiring manager about the implications of IT projects not being delivered on time and to budget. Because ultimately, the IT director, as an example, wants their projects delivered on time and within budget. That's what they want. Our services as a recruiter can solve that problem. We've got a client that we're working with now. He works within SaaS. When he's talking to his hiring manager, he's talking about increasing sales and reducing churn. That's what the hiring managers want, rather than a recruiter. The other client works within logistics. They don't talk about recruitment again. They talk about having a competitive edge over the competitors with enhanced logistics performance. It's a real game changer when you get a head around this. The hiring manager doesn't want recruitment; they want the results that recruitment actually provides. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please let me know. I'm just going to come to. I just want to check in to make sure that that makes sense. First of all, what I said there, just let me know if it makes sense. If it doesn't, that's okay. And while I'm doing that, you were mentioning when speaking to a hiring manager, they can make you go straight to contingent. How do you switch to that to retainer? I mean, the waiting for later is one, but what way? Do you understand that question, Drew? I don't sure if I understand. How do you switch that to retainer?
Yeah, I guess George, can you clarify more? I think the sort of baseline of the question is you're mentioning when speaking to a hiring manager, they can make you go straight to contingent. How do you switch that to retainer? So again, we're going to be going through some of the ways in this call, George. But one of the key factors is the approach, right? Marketing to the right people. So the point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes one of the big mistakes people make is that they're speaking to people that can't, because they're already working with multiple recruiters. They're never going to pay a retainer, or it's very difficult to get them to pay a retainer, right? If they've already been approached by multiple recruiters who are offering to do it contingent, and they're used to doing it that way, the chances that they're going to then say to you, okay, look, right, we're going to pay you up front, we're going to work retained with you, when effectively your pitch is the same as every other recruiter, it makes it very difficult, right? So one of the first sort of shifts we need to make is that we're building relationships with these people before they have a recruitment need. So just
Yeah.
so George said,
Let me just
when
see.
I mean way later, you said they're not looking, but will later.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
Terry, you can say something?
yeah, I'm just going to say, just to add to this, I hope this is answering your question. The hiring manager will engage with you on the retained or exclusive basis with cancellation if there's a benefit to them, the hiring manager, and the business in doing so. And we're going to explain to you how you can identify how they will benefit. So what a lot of recruiters do, they talk about, I need to work on a retainer. This is good for our cash flow. I don't want you to waste my time. That's all about you. Anybody here, listen to this, if you've got young children, kind of conversation you would have had with your children is something like this. If you don't eat your greens, you're not going to go back on the computer. You can get your children to eat their greens, even though they don't want to, because the benefit of them eating their greens is they can go back on the computer or go back on the screen. And it's exactly the same with anybody that you're talking to, any hiring manager you can talk to. If you can communicate the benefit in them working with you on the retained or exclusive cancellation, they're more likely to do it. If they're going to benefit in doing that, then they're more likely to do it. But it has to be to their benefit rather than yours. I'm not being rude, guys, but your hiring managers don't really care about you. They just care about themselves and their problems and the problem within their business. So you have to communicate the benefit and then working with you retained or exclusive basis. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, by the way, let me know and I'll see if I can give you a bit more clarity on that. Just let me know if that answers your question as to how you get them to switch from working contingent. Yes, it does. Yeah, great. It's communicating the benefit to them as to how they will benefit working with you exclusively. Another one. Oh, another question that is, yeah. Yeah, far away if you've got another question. Yeah. Back to
Perfect.
you, Drew.
Just
Yes.
while you're typing your question, George, right? So the first thing we need to shift is the approach, right? We need to increase the volume of appointments, right? The volume of sales meetings we're having with hiring managers. And the way we do that is by changing the approach to go after future buyers rather than now buyers, right? The next shift we need to make is what we call filtration. And there's a story that we thought we used to illustrate this point, right? So Starbucks, the company Starbucks, right? They have in their sales process, they convert 97% of people that enter their sales process into a buyer, right? And the reason for this is, if you think about how a Starbucks store is, or most Starbucks stores are laid out, is that they only ever sell to buyers, right? They only ever sell to people who are there to buy coffee or to buy something from Starbucks, right? And this is something we need to translate into your recruitment or search business, right? So one of the things we need to understand, one of the key things we need to understand is that retained or exclusive services aren't for everyone. They're not right for every prospect. They're not right for every market even, right? Or not right for every role in every market. So one of the key shifts we need to make is not only with the approach as you mentioned earlier, but to only be approaching, only to be selling to prospects who already have a need for that level of service. or prospects who already have a need for that level of service. Again, to check in, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Not this stage, Drew. And I will answer that question a bit later on. Yeah. So nothing more to add, Drew.
Okay, so check in, does that make sense? Just give us a yes or no in the chat box. Perfect. So some of the key things that we get our clients to make sure is in place when they're pitching a retained or exclusive service is number one, obviously we need to make sure that the hiring manager has a need that you can help with, right? Ideally we need the role to be critical to the business or department, right? If it's not going to be critical to if the role isn't critical to the business or department, they just want bums on seats, so they're not looking for the best candidate. Then it's very difficult to convince them to go down the retained or exclusive route. Another one is we need to sort of ideally be in a market or hiring for roles where the hiring manager or the hiring leaders, their job security and performance is dependent on making the right hire. Again, you can sometimes be working on a vacancy where that it needs to be filled, but again, if it's not filled with the right person or not filled in the right time frame, it's not really going to affect the hiring manager's performance, right? We need that to be a factor, otherwise I'm not going to be paying for using a premium service. Again, one of the key things, so again, this might help you answer your question, George. We'll come to it specifically in a minute, but does the hiring manager want the best candidate sent to them exclusively and not to their competitors? Right. And again, this is one of the sort of key mistakes that people make when pitching a retained or exclusive service. They talk about what as Terry mentioned, they talk about the benefits to them as a recruiter. If you're think about it from your client's point of view, right? If their performance is based on getting the right candidate, if their business them hitting the numbers in the business is based on getting the right candidate, they probably don't want you to go out and find the top candidate, the top performer, and send it to not only them but their competitors as well. And you think about how a contingency service works. You normally, if you get a candidate, you're sending it to multiple other agencies because you want to make sure that you get paid for that search, right? With exclusive retained, it's not just about the client being exclusive to you, it's about you being exclusive to the client as well, right? So when we find the best candidate, Mr. Client, we're going to send just to you and you only, right? Again, most clients are going to be happy with that. They don't want you to send it to their competitors as well because they want to get the first refusal on the top candidates. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and just some actually something somebody said about how can you make them realise the retainer is more interesting for them than for us. It's not even about realising; it's about getting them to verbalise how they would benefit. So, listen, don't apologise for the questions. It's great because then we know that we're answering it. So, if you ask any hiring manager, I can find the top 1% of insert job title. But I'm curious, from your point of view, when I find them, do you want these candidates exclusively, or is it okay if I share them with your direct competitors? If it's a business critical role, they're going to go, well, no, I want these guys exclusive. Now they've told you they want to work with you exclusive. Ask a hiring manager. But as Drew rightly pointed out, these have to be for business critical roles. If you're recruiting, I don't know, warehouse staff, and they want 30 warehouse staff to move boxes around in the warehouse. There's nothing wrong with that type of recruitment, but it's more there. They just want bums on seats. It's not a business critical situation. But if it's a role, let's say a sales director, senior manager role, and it's business critical, they want the best candidates. And ask them this question: I can get these candidates to you. Do you want the cheapest candidate or do you want the best? I can't get you both. It will either be the cheapest or the best. Which one's most important to you? But you ask the question and they will say, well, I want the best. Great, I can help you. And by the way, a small percentage, about 10% of it will say, I want the cheapest candidate. Our recommendation to you is say that's not what we do. We can't find. We're not in the business of finding the cheapest candidates. We tend to go for the best candidates. So if you're looking for the cheapest, well, probably not the organisation for you. And you let them know at the very start. But asking them whether they want these candidates exclusively, or if you want them to share them with their direct competitors. I have never, in all the years I've been doing this, but hiring manager says, "Oh no, you can share these with my direct competitors." Again, let me just check in. Does that make sense? It's by asking the right questions and getting them to verbalize what they want rather than you telling them what to do, if that makes sense. So just give me a yes or a no. If it doesn't make sense, it's okay. I don't take offense or anything. If anything we're saying is not making sense, you don't quite get it, let me know. If it is making sense, let me know. Thank you.
Again, if you've got any questions as well, let us know as well. But yeah, if it's making sense so far, yes or no in the chat box before we move on to the next point. Awesome. Good stuff. So look, moving on to the third point. So we've got your approach, we've got filtration. Next thing is what we call it automatic sales framework. This is what you what it's just a sort of recap, right? We want to be approaching the right people so we can increase the volume of sales meetings we can have with prospects who have a need for the outcome that our candidates deliver rather than to the candidate themselves. We want to use filtration so we're only speaking to the right type of people as well. So we don't not just want volume, we want quality to be there as well. People who have a need that we can help with, want the best candidate, want to send to them exclusively as well. Again, it's a business critical role. Then once we've got these meetings with the right people, we need to make sure that we're saying and doing the right things during the sales meeting. Again, which is another mistake people make, right? So one of the sort of key things that I want you to take from this is that when we enter a sales meeting or a conversation with a hiring manager, right, your sort of main goal should be in terms of selling or getting them to buy an exclusive retained services is to help the prospect make the best decision for them and not trying to convince them, right? We want to help them, we want to ask the right questions to help them convince themselves, right? Terry gave a great example of one earlier where we're asking a hiring manager, hey, look, when I find these candidates, do you want them sent to you, just you, or you okay for me to send to your competitors? Again, this is not you telling the client what to do. It's them saying to you, no, what, this is how I want it done, right? And we need to take that approach with that the entire sales meeting, the entire sales the entire sales conversation we have. The more we can get them to, rather than you telling them here's why you need a exclusive or retained service, they're telling you, ask them questions, so they're telling you, the easier it's going to be for you to make the sale. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it reminds me of somebody I used to work with based in North America, and he recruited country managers. So by the way, base salary is about 250,000. Although he was based in Texas, he was recruiting a country manager for a manufacturing company, let's say in Germany or wherever. And he always asked these questions because he wanted to establish, and because they would always want the number one person for that role. It's a business critical role, but it's getting the prospect to make that decision. You don't have to convince them. Ideally, here's what you want. You want the hiring manager who want to buy from you more than you want to sell to them. That's what you actually want. With the automatic sales framework, that's exactly what you're doing. So you help the prospect make the best decision for them and their business. But you don't convince them, as Drew said, you let them convince themselves. So nothing else to add to that. Again, let me just check if that's all making sense. If it's not, let me know. If it is, let me know so we know where we're at.
And any questions, let us know as well. Perfect.
Yeah, any questions
Awesome.
at all? Yeah.
Perfect. So look, another one of the key shifts you need to make in terms of how the sales meeting goes is that, and again, this is something we see throughout the industry, is that people try and sell retainers, right? And it's one of the questions we get asked, how do I sell more retainers? Probably you're here right now because you want to know how to sell more retainers. One of the sort of key things to understand is that the retained part, the retainer in of itself is just the payment terms, right? It doesn't define the service. It defines the payment terms. So rather than thinking about it in terms of, how do I sell retainers? What we need to sell or what we need to get the client to buy is the idea of exclusivity, right? So rather than thinking, how do I just sell retainers? Before we even talk about the retained payment, before we even talk about that, in order to get this service, you have to pay up front, or going to pay a third up front. We need the client to buy into the idea that they want you to work with them exclusively. If we can't get them to agree that they need to, an exclusive service for this particular vacancy, there's no point even mentioning the retainer at all, right? Again, I just want to check in if that makes sense first of all before I continue. Just give me a yes or no in the chat box, right? We don't sell the retainer, we sell the idea of exclusivity, and the retained part is just the payment terms. Right, just give me a yes or no in the chat box before I move on. Again, if it doesn't make sense, if you have any questions, let me know as well. It's important that you understand this distinction. This is one of the biggest mistakes that you're probably making right now during sales meetings.
Yeah. So if you remember, we talked earlier about asking the right questions. We talked about, the client will do something if it's a benefit to them. If you can communicate the benefit to them working with you exclusively, then there's a good chance you can get a retain. You can get that on a retained basis, because then it's just the payment terms. Now, the classic model is a third, a third, a third, a third upon authorization of assignment, a third upon presentation of acceptance of shortlist, and the balance payable upon offer and acceptance. That's a classic model. But there's variations of that. So you could get a percentage of that fee up front. Some of our clients we work with, they get 50% of the fee up front and the balance upon offer and acceptance. But until the client can see the benefit in them doing this, and that's exactly what Drew's saying, you've got to get them to agree to work with you exclusively first and foremost, because anything else, it doesn't matter. And it goes back to the example I gave, where, you talk to your children about eat your greens, you can go back on the screen. If you can get them to commit to the exclusive, you're with a really good chance of getting some of that investment up front.
Again, someone checking, does that make sense? Give us yes or no in the chat box. Perfect. Awesome. The other thing, sort of, again, in terms of the sales meaning of it in of itself, right, is yes, we want to get them to buy into the idea of exclusivity before we even mention the retained payment terms, right? Again, another one of the reasons you want to do that is because if we can't get the retainer, then at the very least we can get exclusive with cancellation, right? When we work with recruitment search firms, one of our sort of key philosophies that we teach is that if it's not retained or it's not exclusive with cancellation, and again, that with cancellation is a very important part, then we don't work on a vacancy, right? If the client is willing to work with you exclusively, but is reluctant to have a cancellation policy, then they're probably thinking about cancelling. And thinking about cancelling, what that means is they're willing to let you work on a vacancy without really any commitment to hire, without really any commitment to pay. And they're the worst type of clients you can get, right? You working and not getting paid is not sort of a good business model in terms of what we think anyway. Another question you need to ask yourself, right, is, again, we review sort of hundreds of sales calls over the years. And one of the key things missing from every sales call, or most sales calls when we listen to recruiters, is they're speaking to prospects who are used to going down the contingency route, and they're trying to get them to go down the retained or exclusive route. One thing that's always lacking, or often lacking, is they're not explaining the difference between the two types of service, right? If we're speaking to a client or a prospect who's used to contingency, and we're not explaining the different level of service they're going to get with an exclusive recruiter or with a retained recruiter, then they're not that, and they don't understand that difference, they're not going to want to pay you up front, right? Because when we do that, right, when we're going to be pitching the same way as every other recruiter, but we're just asking for more upfront from the client. We need to very clearly explain the differences. Also, so Paul said, on retained, that's perfect. Awesome. Someone checking, does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box, and any questions, let us know as well. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think this being able to communicate the difference to the hiring manager, because in our experience, a lot of hiring managers don't know the difference. If you can't communicate the difference between contingent and retained or exclusive cancellation and how they're going to benefit, you're not going to get the business. And the other one that I'd add, Drew, that that we often talk about is you've got to believe that the client will benefit from working on a retained or exclusive basis. Because if you're having this conversation with a hiring manager and you actually don't believe they're going to benefit, you're probably not going to be particularly convincing. So you've got to be totally convinced that this is the right thing for the client to do. And if you're not convinced it's the right thing for the client to do, you shouldn't be offering this in any way whatsoever. So that's the other point that I would add to that. Look, we're going to wrap up shortly, but I want to make sure that we give you everything that you want. So I'm just going to quickly go around. Any questions about anything, please type them in there. If there's a question that you don't want to ask in public, we're going to open up some slots in our calendar where you can go to you can book a call with one of our team, and we're going to answer any questions. We can actually put together an actual plan for you to win, to generate more inquiries and to win more retained business. So if you go to makemoreplacements.com/start, if you put that, can you put that in the chat box, please, Drew? I don't think the link. But yeah, if you've got any questions, yeah, thank you. So if you go to this link here, if you want to have a private conversation and look specifically at your business, we're more than happy to do that. All we ask is that you're the owner or the director of the business. This is just for owners and directors of the business. It's a no cost, no obligation call. We'll look specifically at your business. We'll look specifically at your niche market that you're operating in. And we'll share with you exactly what you can do to generate more leads, how you can win more retained or exclusive business, and how you can increase your sales. As I said, there is no cost and there is no obligation. Question here: as someone who likes to plan everything, including scenarios to clients, so you start by playing that ego with, do you want the candidate with this or that? But how do you switch from exclusive to okay? I think the question is, how, once they've agreed to work with you exclusively, how do you then get the retainer? Has always been a unicorn to me, but never been able to do it. Does that make sense to you? I think I understand this.
Yeah. So
How,
I think you're just can you just confirm in the chat box? Like, it's a question here. You understand, how to get them to agree to exclusivity, but how do you get them to then, take the level up and agree to retain? Is that the question? Just give us a yes or no. Yeah, pretty much. Perfect. So again, like we said, if you want us to review your actual sales process, then go to makemoreplacements.com/start and we can review the call. But once you've got the exclusivity dialed down, the retain part's not that difficult, because if you've got a prospect,
quite easy.
one of the big reasons when people don't get enough retainers, they don't ask, right? But once you've got a prospect who's saying that they, not only want exclusivity, right? They want the candidates exclusively, but they also say that they want you to work on it exclusively, because there's a difference between them understanding they want the exclusive is the best route to go down. They still need to make a decision on what recruiter they're going to use to work exclusively, right? So let's assume you've got that part, they want it exclusively, and you've got them to agree that it's you. Then it's pretty much a case of saying, look, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you want us to work on this exclusively, here's the payment terms. Take a third up front now, a third on acceptable shortlist, and a third when the candidate starts, right? Or whatever sort of payment structure you want to use. But once we've got that, then it's a yes or no from the client. And again, we can't be afraid to get the no. We can't be afraid for the rejection. But it literally as simple as that. Okay, you want it exclusively. You want us to work on it exclusively. If that's what you want from us, here's our payment terms. Here's how it works. Again, George, you want to check in? Does that make sense? Give a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
No, you covered that really well. Key thing is getting them to agree to work with you exclusively, and then it's just the payment terms. See if I understand. You only mentioned exclusive.
Yeah, literally, like George. The thing we need to think about is the retainer is just the payment. Let me try and give you a metaphor that might help you understand it. It's like if we're selling a house, right? We don't really talk about the mortgage until they want the house. Right? We don't talk about the mortgage and the payment terms until they want the house, right? Once they want the house, then we can talk about the payment terms. It's just like that, right? Until they say, yes, I want it, I want your service that you offer, then it's a case of getting them to agree to the payment terms, which we can negotiate on. Same as your fee, right? There's no point mentioning your fee unless someone wants to buy your services. Again, it's a big mistake that people make is they talk about the fee before that, sometimes one of the mistakes we see is that a recruiter be talking to a prospect, and a prospect will say, hey, look, can you send your terms through, before they've had a conversation, before the prospect said, yes, I want to buy the services, right? And then the recruiter sends through their terms, and it's got the fee on there and everything, and then the prospect is saying no based on just the terms, right? We want to use a conversation to sell your services. And again, the service is not the retained part. Your fee is not your fee is not the service either. The service is the exclusivity. Once they say, yeah, you know what, I understand that I need to work. If I want this role filled with the best possible candidate, I need to work exclusively with somebody. And yes, based on our conversation, George, I like what you said, I like your firm, and I want that exclusivity to come from you. You can say, great, if you want us to work on exclusively, here's how it works. This is the fee, and the way that fee is split is in these payment terms. And it really is simple as that. And again, we have to be comfortable with getting the no. I think sometimes, especially making the shift from contingency to retained, is people are scared of losing the job order, right? They don't, if you think about it like this, right? If you're working contingency right now, let's say the industry average, right? I don't know what your numbers are, but if for every 10 job orders, typical contingency recruiter, every 10 job orders they fill 3, because they're used to sort of having to work 10 to fill 3, they're reluctant to walk away from any sort of job order, right? So they're scared of getting a no. With retained, We just need to think about, for every 10 sales conversation we have, we only need 3 to say yes, and we're still going to get paid. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
No, literally, but I just for take a look at Richard's statement here, where he says, "I have a competitor who charges contingent, no placement, no fee, and they're cleaning up as there's no obligation unless the client benefits. I have one advantage: candidate profile write-up. But with most, it's not enough. How do I retain exclusive and compete against that to convince clients to engage us exclusive and retained and try our services?" Again, I want to repeat, it's not about you convincing, it's about them wanting to engage with you, and it's about asking the right questions. The other thing is that you need to be careful, Richard, because I think you may be making an assumption that your competitor, to quote you, is cleaning up. Unless if your competitors told you they're cleaning up, I'll take that with a pinch of salt. It could well be that you're making an assumption. But here's what we know with contingent recruiters: most of the roles that they're working on, they don't fill. So your competitor that you said is cleaning up, working on contingent, most of the roles they're working on, they don't fill. So the perception from the client's point of view is these
Okay.
guys, these contingent recruiters don't fill most of the roles.
So Richard, right? You just said you hear from. So Richard said that he's hearing this from his hiring managers that use his firm. That's a clear sign that you're approaching the wrong people, right? So remember right at the beginning we said about targeting the future buyers rather than now buyers. If you're trying to go down the exclusive and retained route, you should not even be approaching the same people as your competitors approaching who's going down the contingency route, because they're going to be looking for people who are hiring right now. Right. And if you're speaking to hiring managers and they're saying they're using this contingency firm, it's because they're hiring right now, your approach is wrong. We need to be speaking to people who aren't even hiring yet, building a relationship with them. So we want to be essentially want to get in a position that when they are hiring, you're the first person they think of. So the way we're going to sort of beat the competitor, so to speak, is they're not even going to have a conversation with this firm because they've already got a relationship with you. And if you're saying to this firm, you've got a good relationship with this firm, you've got a good relationship with this prospect, this client, and you're saying that you're going to provide you're going to provide the best service, you're going to send the candidates to them exclusively, and they've got another contingency recruiter saying that we're going to do it for free. But hey, look, you explain to the client that when they find the candidates, they're not just sending them to you, send them to sort of 4, 5, 6 of your competitors as well. They're not gonna want that, right? So every hiring manager that you're speaking to, and they're saying that they use this firm, do they understand or do they know that this firm is probably sending the candidates to all the other hiring managers as well, right? And then do they care about that? Again, it goes down to filtration. Are you targeting the right market for an exclusive or retained service? If not, then you may need to change the market or change the roles that you're hiring for in your market.
Listen, thank you very much for joining us. Unless you've got any other questions, we'll wrap up now. I want to thank you for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you've got a lot from it. As I said, our sole aim is to help you generate more leads, make more placements, and earn more money. And ideally, work fewer hours. That's what we're here to do. If you'd like to discover more of how you can do that, book a call with us. Until next time, folks, take care, take action, be relentless. Cheers, folks.